Okay, good afternoon, everyone, again. My name is Sasha Chilkova. I'm a marketing manager here at Witham. Thanks for joining us today for our webinar on Microsoft Ignite and the key takeaways, announcements, and news that we learned this year. Our presenter, Adam Levithan, actually got to go to Ignite in person, so I'm really excited to hear what he has to share. Let's go over a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording the webinar. We will share the link to the recording and a copy of the slide deck later this afternoon via email. We'll try to keep the session to about 45 minutes with 15 or 10 minutes left for questions at the end. Please send in your questions. Don't hold back. We'll try to address some of them during this presentation. Some will hold back till the end. Just use the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we will address them. So with that, I think, Adam, we are ready to get started.
Fantastic, thanks so much. I have recovered from Ignite, and just in case, let me introduce myself. Adam Levithan. I'm currently the product management for our One Window Workplace solution. Whoops, that auto-forwarded. I've been working in the industry for over 12 years, started as developing InfoPath forms, yes, believe it, way back when they were cool and hot, and then worked up to building architectures, managing a network operations team, and being a product manager for a major migration organization, and really excited to be here at Witham. I was actually here a few years ago as a practice lead for consulting. So I get to go to Ignite, and I'm excited to bring you the top of the line news. Obviously, we can't do all of the news in 45 minutes. Please ask your questions away, and we will answer them either in a row or at the end. And so what we're going to talk about simply is Microsoft 365, SharePoint, and then your questions, dun, 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 and probably a lot of in between. And really what I'm going to talk about is why these items matter. So if there's, again, anything on the top of your mind, this is your time. Please put it in the questions, and we'll get to those to make it as valuable as possible. So let's talk about Microsoft 365. Actually, I wish we should have done a poll here, Sasha, and just said, who knows the term Microsoft 365? So first, this started as what was marketing and what was just the combination of the different services that were available: Windows 10, Enterprise Mobility and Security, Office 365. But now we're really seeing that behind that marketing, there is functionality. And so one of the things that I think is a major piece of that is a unified dashboard. So they are actually bringing the capability of managing all of the different features of Microsoft 365. So no longer is it just really a SKU, it's talking about a way to look at the different applications. Sorry about the screen skipping. I will remove that auto advance later. And so why this is important is because there are features that really blend well with all of the different solutions. And one of those is Files on Demand. We've seen a huge adoption of Windows 10, the Fall Creators Update, November, and Files on Demand. And it's really fantastic that people are adopting SharePoint and OneDrive immediately because they're getting that experience that they really want with the Files on Demand on their desktop, and they're able to access and edit all of the solutions, but at the same time they are able to maintain their old habits. Whether those are good or bad, we can argue at a different time. But it's really cool to see that. And that's a great example of files on demand and Microsoft 365 as an example. And I'll be able to show you one other in a second. But this one, you know, threats going from your desktop all the way up into the cloud, and you'll be able to see items in one place for all over. And I'm thinking that this 10,000 is probably a subset of Microsoft, or someone just had fun making up some numbers. Then the next one, which I'd heard about but really struck me as they've fully implemented now, is Microsoft Search. Now, this is scary to me in some ways, because it is talking about using Bing, and I'm going to actually do that for you. So who here uses Bing all the time? You can post your answer in the chat if you feel like it. It will not be held against you. So Bing, here we go, just Bing. What you will notice though is I have my Office 365 environment here. My one window workplace web parts added. I am logged in here as Contoso admin. I'm sure you've never heard that name before. And then we are going into Bing, and we are also logged in Contoso. And I have to admit, you know, this is where the fear factor comes in, right? I am logging in to a normal service. Is my content private? And so the answer is yes. Because you're logging in, the information is segregated into your corporate area. So even though what I'm about to show you will look like it's co-joined or federated, it really is federated, and it's located in two separate locations. Yeah, someone made a comment that, you know, they heard about it since it was released, and I guess that's what happens when you're an MVP. You forget where you heard about it and when you're allowed to talk about it. And so here I'll do the age-old test, and I'll hit enter. And so, well, now you don't see anything interesting, except if you're looking, I did a really bad job with our Witham logo here, but you'll see it says show results from one window. And if I open this, dun, 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 whoa, all results, files, sites, groups, conversations. And so here I don't really have that many Teams conversations, but if I did, Yammer and Teams conversations will show up next to each other. And so that's just because my this test environment doesn't have that many teams. So that's pretty neat. So what's happening here is one centralized search is displaying all of the results. And why this is important, again, Microsoft 365, if I go back to the presentation and oh, that's not what I wanted. I want that. And it sticks for me this time. You'll see here on the left that this Microsoft search bar is going to be included in every single Office product. So from any Office product, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, from eventually Office 365 itself, the search bar, you will start getting this Office search. One other place that I think it's really interesting that I can show you that people don't typically use is in Office, office.microsoft.com. So we all actually have, oh, I think it's just office.com. We all have this mysterious landing page called office.com that not many of us log into. But it is actually a really neat place that already rolls up using the graph, your documents, OneDrive files, SharePoint files. But here you can see the search box that is going to be eventually included also in Office 365. And so I'm avoiding clicking on it because once I do a zero-sum search, it's already going to hit the graph and provide information that it thinks, so artificial intelligence, it thinks is important to me. Again, this is a demo account, so it's not really that interesting. But you can see I have apps, I have files, I have people I'm close with, and I have sites that I use most frequently. That's pretty cool. And then if I do the same wonderful test, you can see that even before I actually hit enter, the suggestions are already there. And if I hit enter, I'm going to get that same experience, or those same answers in a little bit different experience that I did in the Bing interface. So pretty cool kind of stuff that we're getting. So just wanted to show you that. I think that is just a demonstration. So great question from someone. You know, why I'm bringing this up for the value is the long term. So the question was, isn't this a little awkward for a corporate digital workplace to have to go to a different location? 100%. Oops, am I not supposed to say that? But yes, the answer is 100%. It does take your user out of context, which, you know, as the product owner of One Window, we try to bring them in into the digital workplace and keep them there. But long term, I think it's important. It demonstrates how Microsoft 365 connects. So you can imagine your search bar on the bottom left in Windows 10 will also be connected. So it's just a great representation. So thank you for that I guess either point or question that, you know, I wouldn't start pointing your users towards Bing right now, in my opinion, but in the future, it's going to come to us within our digital workplace. And then one comment here, someone just tried it. So you have to go into apps and add-ons. We can check it. I'm going to show the SharePoint admin in a second. And you have to turn on Microsoft Search. And then it will be turned on in your environment. So if you're an admin, you can do that. All right, great. Keep those great questions and comments coming. I think it is global admin. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of those questions. I think it's global admin. My account is everything, so sometimes I don't remember which one, but I will check on that for you. Okay, so now we've talked about the holistic part, Microsoft 365. Let's go into SharePoint. So I have a list of all of the wonderful things from the SharePoint admin. Bah humbug, you guys don't want to hear about the SharePoint admin. This, I have removed those forwards in my presentation and it's still showing. Let's go show it to you. So what I've done, we are in a first run tenant, so you might not see this in your environment. So you know, it might not be there, but if you go to admin and you go to SharePoint, which I won't go back to right now, you should have the opportunity to go to the new admin center. And so what happens is we get a dashboard rapidly up that's different. And also this left-hand site is different too. So this is really cool because we're getting full functionality and ability to see a lot more details than we ever have before. One, who's the primary admin? I think that's fantastic. And you can see I can sort and filter. So basically, this is another case of where the SharePoint framework is being used everywhere. You can see that this is just a powerful list that we're used to. You also can add columns if you want to. Oh, this is a good one. Office 365 group. Apply. And if I remember this correctly, I believe I can Oh, I did it wrong. I thought I could, oh, not in this interface. Some of the columns we're now going to start being able to order by just dragging and dropping, which is really exciting. I guess not in this one. But this is important, right? Because right now we're not sure if we have some old sites, we have some new sites, which ones are associated with a group. So we can go in here, look at all these sites that don't have groups associated to them. And we can see the template that it's a team site. Really neat informational. Great question. Who are the group owners? I still think that that's a little bit of a hodgepodge. I have to find out where it comes from. In a group itself, it's probably in the owners that you've assigned, but in a SharePoint site, it's probably the first either individual or group that it sees. So I have to actually dig deep to find out that answer, because I think it's different things for different templates. But at least it gives you a place to start, right? Compared to before where it didn't. So if I go back to, they do have group, and what is the group owners? Oh, so, right, so there is a group called group owners, and then it's the people who are in the group owners, but we also saw that other locations, it had a different answer. All right, so here, then we have some, some settings, the new or classic. Oh, it doesn't say modern, it says new or classic experience here. You can, if there are sites that have been deleted, we can see that in here. So just overall, really cool information. Also, I like the active sites data while we wait for this to bring up. So you can see what's going on, the sites itself. Again, this is a demo environment, so I'm not surprised that there isn't that much activity, but I can sort and filter by the dates here, see when was the last time people have used it, active files, all that, export information. Really, really great information. Going back to, there we go. Going back to Microsoft Search real quick, we go to settings, services and add-ins, Microsoft Search down here, and you turn it on. And again, I don't remember, it would make sense if it's the global admin that can do that and not just the SharePoint admin, because it is going across multiple services and you can actually control what services it's available in. Okay, so that is the first item. I think it's pretty cool. Next, file restore for SharePoint. So this is not in Office 360. Sorry about that, guys. This is not in Office 365. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Hold on. Maybe I do that. Oh, you know what? Timing. That's what it is. Hold on one second. Nope. Okay. There are no transitions. Nothing should happen. This is another example of Microsoft 365. So as you might have heard in OneDrive for Business, you can restore your own files. And so now, as we know, OneDrive and SharePoint are brothers and use almost all the same technology, especially with the next generation sync. And so now you can use the restore files, or you will be able to use the restore files to a SharePoint environment. Come on, everyone, I want to hear lots and lots of clapping from that. That is amazing kind of stuff. And it's really great. And this, again, is something that can come from Office only from the combination of all of the different pieces. And so, as you know, you can use files on demand for SharePoint sites. You can use the next generation sync client. One of the examples that they were using for this was, imagine that your machine was invaded by something called WannaCry, right? What happens if you know a date and time that all of your files have been changed over to, what was it, .WannaCry? Now, you as an individual or the admin can go in and say, oh, there's the date, and I will delete those, or I will overwrite them, and I will replace all of those items with the documents from the day before. Pretty cool. And now they didn't go into detail. Yes, Windows Defender would quarantine the WannaCry files. Yes, Office 365 secure threat protection would quarantine the files. You know, there's a lot more going on there, but just as an example. And so, you know, that's really cool, and that's a major thing that I really like. Thanks for the questions. That one's a broad one, so I'm gonna wait a little bit to answer that one, and I'm gonna keep on going. Another thing, we're going back to the future, and what we're having are dynamic web parts, aka connected web parts. And so this isn't available in my tenant yet, but what it is, a simple example here is you can have on the left-hand side here, you can, in documents as the source, you can click on that document, and then to the right-hand side here, you have a document file viewer web part that is presenting that file. So right now, a list or library can provide the data. You can show the properties of that file. You can show the file itself, or you can embed to show a specific page of information can be in there also. So there's the limited functionality here, but what it means is we're going back to the future, that you can have mini apps, if you want to call them that. You can do, if you have a list of states and you want to see all of your subsidiaries in a state, you can click on the list on the left to do the subsidiaries. Then on the right, it will do the states, and then the right it'll do subsidiaries. And then maybe if you want to click on subsidiaries and have the contact information, then you'll be able to do that. So you start being able to create better experiences, more reasons for people to stay on these, well, quite cool looking pages. So speaking of cool looking pages, it might be little, but it's one of those kind of fun things. And it is a background for a page section. And so, we've gotten the modern look and feel, and we're really pushing the boundaries of looking like commercial websites. And this is really cool because now those bands that we're used to in all of our websites, we can actually create that look and feel, and you can really make some content pop. They even have new web parts, which are for quotes, that really make your page jump out compared to being a classic, boring, old SharePoint site. So I think this is important for the reason that the customers are looking, the Microsoft is looking at what us as the customers and consumers really want to do, and they're starting to be able to provide it. So that's one overall thing of Ignite. There was not much that was brand new, that was hugely inventive. Maybe, Microsoft Search, because it's that Microsoft 365 and combining across all of the different items, that is major. but everything else is all these incremental things that we've been asking for, but they take a really long time. So why is this important? Is that if you do a background, the web part needs to know if the background's dark and behave accordingly, and be able to change its color. So if you do a dark background, the web part inside of it needs to be a light color. So there's a lot of things that they've thought of that will make our experience much, much smoother, and they had to be able to code all of that into the system. So really interesting stuff. Also, speaking of designs, you'll be able to not only, as we did right now, make templates for communication sites, for collaboration sites, and now it's easier than ever to make a template for a team, but you can make a page template. And so here you could say, this is just like a communication site has different personalities. You can say this is an announcement, this is a corporate news item, this is a internal news item, this is a project catch-up worksheet. All the different types of pages you can think of, you can create a template for it so your users can use the right template and get the right look and feel all at their fingertips. And so it can have web parts, it can have images, as we see here. They've also, let's go back here. They've also added some new functionality to the pages, and it's already available. So yeah, let's go there. Page templates, we saw that. Now, what I like is, oh, is it in this environment? I picked the wrong environment. So they now have a few different design schemas for this page header, where you can include the author, you can do an override, but you can see this is an example of a page template that already had the text included, which it wouldn't normally if you just did a blank page, because a blank page is blank. It already has a people and a quick links web part. So this still is a good demonstration of what a template is. You can add the image, you can delete it, you can just name your page. So a lot of great functionality that is available in Pages now. So they're improving that by leaps and bounds and creating these templates. Also, you can, well, share it as that demonstrates. Then, as we always see, the next generation here, a central asset library. So you want that header to look pretty all the time. Well, now you can do that. You can have a central library where all of those page images can come from. So that's one of those like little refinements, but it makes so much sense. So you can have 24 images that people can select from, but they're all brand approved and they all look pretty good. And even we've found you can play around, you can have even 12 images, but the way that you do the focal point gives you a different experience in the page, even if you're using the same page, the same image over and over and over again. So that's really, really kind of cool. Now, actually, here's a great stopping point. So we talked about SharePoint, and now we're going to talk about Teams. So I want to read this question. We implemented Office 365 SharePoint last year with the hope that it will replace all shadow IT apps used in the company. We settled on keeping Basecamp, whoa, instead of Teams, since IT can't offer a unified search of Teams contents from our SharePoint site. With Microsoft Search, can we start the search from our SharePoint site to search for Teams content? So, well, this is interesting because files you can find, because those files are in a team site or a collaboration site, as I like to call it. So those should show up in your native search, but the channels and chats are not available out of the box. And as the person pointed to, I probably wouldn't guide them to Bing to solve this issue, but hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months, the Microsoft search will come to the internal SharePoint search, and you will be able to find all of those things. So I actually totally understand what you mean about keeping the existing solution, but I'd start making the transition. And also, I'm not even really talking about all of the different features that were added to Teams, but they really highlighted and went all in on Teams replacing Skype, how to have that process, how to have different people in your organization living in different modes of both Skype and Teams, only Skype, only Teams. And so they've really started to think through those solutions and make them into products so that you can manage it as an administrator. But the future is Teams. All of the hardware partners are migrating their Skype compatible solutions hardware to Teams compatible hardware. And there was an announcement before Ignite that all of the different content, phone capabilities are in Teams now. And in truth, it is a much better calling program than Skype. Some might say that's not hard to do, but it really is a great solution for that. So yes, you're right. There's still some gaps in searches. And that's kind of why we in One Window, we created a web part for seeing all of your teams, all of your sites, all of your groups next to each other so you can at least identify them. And then we have a Discover web part that can look into some of that information, not all of it. So it is one of those gaps, but Microsoft is closing it. I would say that it is 12 to 18 months for that. When talking about and Teams too, still going from a SharePoint point of view here, Microsoft has realized that people are using both. And so also to your comment about Basecamp here, something you can't do, you can create it as a tab, but coming soon using the SharePoint framework are wholly embedded pages. And so this screenshot, hopefully you can see it, is seamless. You create the page in a SharePoint site and you directly embed it into a team, and no one knows that this application is not in Teams. And so this is also another example of a connected dynamic web part that's actually kind of cool. So you can see down here at the bottom, the accounts, the top is selected. That shows to Northwind Capital. And by selecting that, you're getting the person responsible for it, Adele, and you're getting her people card. So really kind of cool detail. Also, something I didn't really cover in here, but they were going to be releasing conditional formatting that you see here in the red. But instead of having to know how to program JSON, which I really don't know how to do, it will be in a sort of Excel-like interface that you can use a GUI to be able to create those conditional formatted columns. So that's really cool. So that's one thing they're doing. They're integrating SharePoint into Teams. And then also the opposite is true, that they've recognized that it's confusing when a SharePoint site has a team, but you're not sure about it. One of the reasons that this is important is because if you go to the document library and you go into, well, this is into channel, there are people who have been deleting the folders that the channel creates. You can imagine the havoc that creates when Teams doesn't understand where the documents are that were originally created there. So now you can see this folder is connected to a channel. So they're going to let us know It's one of those little tiny things, but again, they've heard whether on user voice or direct customer feedback that that was an issue. And then also they're showing a site that has a team associated with it. Previously, there was a question about an Office 365 group. And so just to talk about this for a second, depending on what type of site you are creating, you either do or do not get an Office group. So it's not whether you choose to have a group, it's when a group is created. So a communications template does not get any of the additional features when you release when you create a communication site. So when I say features, planner, obviously teams, a group, and anything else that hangs off of a modern site. When you do create a collaboration site, you do get a Office 365 group. So this is where, you know, our information architecture, again, Microsoft 365, you need to be aware that that email is created. And so if you create a marketing site, you're going to do marketing at Contoso. And if you're not careful and you have a certain setting that says allow for duplicates, it will override if you already had marketing at contoso.com. So that's ugly. And so it's really not a choice. And then also if you allow your users to create teams, your team is creating a collaboration site, your collaboration site is creating an Office 365 group. So I hope that domino effect answered the question, and let me know if it did not. Great question about when will Teams have a private channel? And the answer, it was not announced at Ignite. So you're getting information not available at Ignite. I'm so proud of myself. But they are really aiming still to have it in the fourth quarter before, you know, January, because they've heard that it's something we really want, but there were other priorities, so they couldn't announce it. So they're still aiming for fourth quarter of the year, worst case scenario, beginning of 2019. I'll keep my fingers crossed that it's earlier. All right. Thanks for the questions. I'm going to move on a little bit, and then we'll get back to them. So organizing, I organized this into security, which it could be in several different areas, but that's the most typical one to protect your assets, and that is labels. So now they're completely making site classification labels available and retention labels available, and this is combined. I didn't have the screenshot, but it used to be that you would have Office 365 labels, which were only for retention, and then you would have Azure Information Protection labels. Now, if you choose, those labels can be the same and both act as retention and as protection labels. And that's why I put it in the security bucket. Then also, what they're showing here is that you can see now across your environment how the labels are being used. And again, Microsoft 365, this is not just SharePoint, but this is also Exchange. Another thing that they've done is you can automatically classify items with a label. Now, as with everything, this is after the document is uploaded because it's using search. But if you put parameters, just like you did for data loss prevention, you can actually label items. And this is something that I think is underutilized. It was a current functionality, but because it was separate from both protection and retention, it was hard to use. Now, as it is going to be combined, really cool stuff. Also, this again shows up in Office products. In Word document, you can just actually do a drop down like you see up here and say retention and choose if it's what was this, that label, tax contracts, if it's confidential, if it's super top secret, whatever that label and those different categories are. So making it really easy for users to do it, and then also automating it on the back end. So I'm really excited about that. Another area, I'm not sure how many of you guys are actually international, but what was a very high barrier to entry is now, I still think it's a few thousand people that you have to have to get this for free. But if you do have content, or well, I should say individuals that are in different areas, you now can store different site collections in those different areas, and that's really cool. So the end user is not going to see anything because the web interface are served from local servers anyway. URLs will all be the same. Everything will be the same experience, except that for compliance measures, the data is stored in the location it needs to be stored. So I think that's really cool, and it's also coming to the masses. It's not. It started out being a huge sum of money for per month, per area per month. Now there's just a threshold, and I apologize, I did not hear that threshold and forgot to look it up this morning of what it is, but really cool stuff to show how Microsoft is paying attention to compliance. All right, with even answering questions, I could have gone on and listed 200 zillion other different features here, but I've pretty much stuck to the time. So keep on adding the questions into the chat, and now we'll answer those a little bit more. And I'll just go just in case. We have a great, we've talked about a lot of different pieces. Sort of that question about moving from Basecamp and how to handle teams and stuff. We have a great ebook guide about leveraging your Office 365 investment. So it covers a lot of these different areas to consider. Might be a good read. And now let's go back to the questions. I had told Sasha that I wasn't going to read them, but I did. So let me go back. Sasha, were there any questions that I passed that?
I think you did pretty well.
Okay.
Let's see. The last one was, I don't know if we addressed it, any improvements to managing governing Office 365 groups?
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, so define managing. Sorry, not to be smug, but oh well. One way to respond to that is that column that I added before, is that they're making you aware of which sites have groups, which is a really big deal. So I think in some ways that helps. But if you're talking about like the creation of them, stopping the creation of them, I think there are improvements to the actual group interface. We'll see if I have it. So you have, I think, that's an interesting note. Not seeing stuff go to Exchange Admin. Okay. So I think they are making changes to this interface where you can see what type of group it is. But if you're referring to being able to stop a group from being created, no, it's still sort of all or nothing. And for that, there's some There's some good third-party solutions that either can allow a group to be created and then have a workflow that either sends for approval and then deletes that group if you didn't want it to be created. But right now, the way that the management is being improved is by exposing it in different locations. So specifically, and maybe this is with my blinders on from a SharePoint perspective, that SharePoint admin interface where you now can see that a site has a group associated with it, which you weren't able to find before. Hopefully that answer is a little satisfying. Please ask more. File restore, I see snuck in there. How do you get to file restore? So SharePoint, you're not going to be able to get to it right now. And then you can get to it in your OneDrive. Luckily, I haven't had to do that. So I'm even, let's see. I think if we do recycle bin and then, no, there you go. Second stage recycle bin, no. I'll have to, I'm an admin here. I'll have to get you that answer. So I will get you that answer about how do you get to the file restore. Great question. Then there was a question I see now about more about Skype or Teams replacing Skype. Basically, at the partner conference, Inspire, in July, they dropped the bomb that Teams will fully replace Teams will fully replace Skype within the next 18 months. And so that's where the announcement before Ignite that all of the phone capabilities were there. Now there are some gotchas, like you can't see all your contacts right now, which is really weird. So it's not fully functional. I did sit in on a session that was about migrating. And I can tell you that the room that was supposed to hold 2,500 people was packed, and there was another 500 people in the overflow area where I was sitting trying to watch it peacefully and eating my lunch. You know, if you go to techcommunity.microsoft.com and look up Skype to Teams, it was a really great session. So it'll go into detail about that transition. Back to, I believe, file restore, about when it will be available in SharePoint. So that one is rolling out now. If we can find it, it is rolling out now. So that means it could take as long as 2 to 3 months, depending on what release ring you are in. Fantastic. Any more questions? Or we can give you guys back 10 minutes of your day. Yeah, I can. The website for the session is Tech Community. Well, so for all sessions, so that's actually a good point. So let's just. If this is a great resource for everything. So here, techcommunity.microsoft.com, and you can go to events. Now, not everything is up yet, which is a little sad, but you can come here and you can look through the catalog. Let's pick this one, because I know it's Teams, and eventually, eventually they will have the session and some of them. There we go. This one has it. So here's the video of that session. So maybe that first session just wasn't recorded. and then they'll also have the download of the file. As you can see, some of them have them and some of them don't, but that's really cool benefit. So you can attend Ignite from the safety of your own offices. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. Let me just go back to the presentation again. My name's Adam Levithan. You can reach me on Twitter here or send me an email. Greatly appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your week.